Okay, council's live.
Thank you very much, Brianna. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, the staff that's joining us, as well as council and those people that are watching on the Zoom, which is being provided on the Town of Greater Napanee's YouTube channel. If you wish to follow the agenda, it will be on our website. If you just go to agenda and minutes, that will be able to give you the link that will take you right to it. So for January the 25th, 2022, I will call the meeting to order. First, council, I will look for an adoption of the agenda as prepared, please. Moved by Councillor Johnson, seconded by Councillor McCormack. All in favor of that motion? Motion is carried. Thank you. Any disclosure of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof? Seeing none, I need a motion for the adoption of the minutes for the Committee of Adjustment for December the 14th, 2021, as prepared. Moved by Councillor Richardson, seconded by Councillor Pennell. All in favor of that motion? Motion is carried. Thank you. Land severance applications. Before I get into all land severance applications, Michael, for any of the severance applications, have we anyone here who is going to be, speaking of just the severance applications, anyone here who is speaking for or against, or anyone who has contacted you either with negative or positive comments toward any of these transactions that we're going to be looking at this evening?
Your Worship, with regards to the consent applications, no, there has been no comment submitted for or against, and no request to speak for or against for these two applications.
Okay. And in regard to the minor variances on that, do we have people who have either sent in comments or wish to be part of the meeting tonight to speak for or against?
For item number 6.1, we do have Mr. Lindsay Mills and Mr. Theo Nibourg that are wishing to speak to council with regards to item 6.1. Okay. For items 6.2 and 6.3, we've not received a request to speak for or against.
Okay, thank you. I'm pretty sure this meeting is going to go beyond the time, so we'll try and get through as much as we can, but paying attention to what we are doing. So 5.1, land severance application, PLCOR 2021-091, L. McCutcheon, 385 Salmon River Road, Lot A, legal description, part lot 16, concession 7, Richmond. Michael, on this, what should we be considering, please?
Your Worship, this is a consent application for the creation of a 2-hectare lot. Staff reviewed the application in light of other development in the area. There are some existing barns that were reviewed. Upon their review, the minimum distance separation calculations yielded that creation of the lot would be compliant with those minimum distance separation requirements. So no attention would be needed to be paid to those barns, meaning no restriction of their use, for example, or similar effects would be required. They're already located far enough away with the from the proposed severed parcel. Also, the density of development in the area does not necessitate the need for a hydrogeological study. Quinte Conservation reviewed the proposal, and they're confident that the area is not terribly dense as far as existing residential development is concerned, and have not advised that a hydrogeological study would be required. And I can take any questions of the committee if there are any.
Yeah, Deputy Mayor Kaiser.
I have two. I'll ask them together, and Michael, you can answer them at once. First question simply is the description says severing 2 acres from 6 or 2 hectares from 6, but in the sketch included it's 1.62 and 2, so the math is a little off. Just so a question to clarify that. And the second thing is on the portion to be retained, it's got a very peculiar shape. And I wonder if you have any comment about that, if that impacts the potential development of the proposed parcel A or sight lines. Is that a fair shape to have and layout? So I'll leave it with that. Thank you.
For the with regards to the comment about the area, identified in the sketch versus the application. There is a variance there. The lots will actually be more in the 2.2 hectare range. So the applicant appears to have just mistyped slightly, albeit the severed lots and the retained lot would meet the required frontage and area. So staff weren't too terribly concerned with the typo there. With regards to the shape of the retained lot, it is a strange shape. Staff were hoping for a more typical lot configuration, but I believe based on the applicant's request, the developability of the further developability of the retained parcel would not be hindered by the shape, and developability of the proposed severed lot, parcel A, also would not be hindered by the shape. So rather strange. I believe there are some topographical features that make this delineation, this line, an attractive lot line in this instance, though.
Thank you.
Yeah, Councillor McCormack, and then I'll go to Councillor Richardson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Michael, just a question regarding the driveway. Looking at the sketch, it appears to travel through what will be parcel A. Is there another driveway anticipated for the retained portion?
Through Your Worship, yes, there is an existing driveway. It's very hard to see on the sketch, but at the very north end of the retained parcel, there is a driveway that traverses through the trees there, which is the primary point of access. I believe the driveway or path that you might be seeing across parcel A may be a former point of access, but it appears that the primary point is further north and wholly contained on the retained parcel's frontage.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Richardson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Councillor McCormack graciously asked the question I was going to ask, and if there's an existing access to the roadway already on the corner, I was going to ask as well if putting a new access on the corner, but if there's already one existing there, then we've already got the question answered. So thank you.
Yeah, if I could just add a comment too. Yes, it is an existing legal access there. It is on the outside corner, so sight lines entering and exiting from that outside corner entrance to the retained parcel are not they're not terribly hindered. If it were on the inside corner on the opposite side of the road, it would likely be a much more challenging entrance to approve for our public works department. But it is in fact legal and in place today.
Okay, thank you. Did I see another hand up? Yes, Councillor Pennell.
Thank you, Worship. You're going to hate me for this. As I'm going through this, I just realized I have a conflict. The conflict is that the applicant is married to a realtor I work with. So I'm going to refrain from voting on this.
Yeah. Madam Clerk, should Councillor Pennell just be removed from the meeting for this portion?
Yes, I believe if he can go back into the waiting room, you can do that, and I will make a note of that declaration in the minutes.
Okay, thank you. Brianna, can you put Councillor Pennell in the waiting room, please, and thank you. Thank you. Any further comments or questions to Michael on this one? If not, you do have a recommendation before you that for that we approve, subject to the conditions which are contained within your agenda. Moved by Councillor McCormack, seconded by Councillor Richardson. All in favor of that motion? Motion is carried. Thank you. So if we could bring Councillor Pennell back into the room. Is this?
Not yet,
No, we don't,
Your
no,
Worship.
not yet. No, you have to, there's another one, 5.2, would it be involving it as well? So Councillor Pennell will have to stay in the waiting room on this one as well. 5.2 land severance application, PLCOR 2021-092. Jessica, did we vote on that? I was so concerned about going to the next one. We did, okay. Lot B, legal description, part lot 16, concession 7, Richmond. Michael?
Thank you, Your Worship. Nothing further to add beyond comments for the previous item. I will note this. I did allude to an inside corner and access on an inside corner. This particular parcel B would result in that. However, there already is an existing entrance that serves this property, and with the radius of Salmon River Road on parcel B, it does have enough has enough sightline to accommodate residential use of that access point as well. So just wanted to clarify that. The corner further to the north is a much tighter radius, so their sightlines are reduced, but in this case it's larger and there are adequate sightlines. Just for clarification.
Yeah. Any questions directed to Michael on this application? Okay, seeing none, you do have a recommendation before you. Council's wishes. Yeah, move to approve. Councilor Richardson, Councilor McCormack. Any further comments or questions? If not, all in favor of the motion on 5.2. Motion is carried. Thank you. We move on now to 6.1, minor variance application. I guess we need to bring Councilor Pennell back into the room for us. And as well, we have Lindsay, Mark, and Theo, who are all here. We've got Councilor Pennell back, okay? So minor variance application, PLVAR 2021-043, T Nibourg, Kimmetts Side Road, South and East Side, legal description, part lot 24, concession 3, Richmond. Michael, I will let you speak to this, and then as we need, oh, I see we've got maybe a couple that are having trouble getting in here. I'll wait until we've got both Lindsay and Theo in before we proceed. There's Mark. Looks like Lindsay's in. Nope, not quite.
Hello?
Hi, Lindsay. Okay,
Hello.
we weren't sure what, yeah, we weren't sure whether we've got you or not. We're just waiting for Theo to get in.
Okay. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. We can't
Okay,
see
good.
you, but we can hear
Oh.
you. So if you wish to speak, you're going to have to either turn your camera, or you are. Okay, thank you.
Am I there? Okay,
Yeah, you're there now. You're there now.
good.
We'll give Theo another minute or two because we're running extremely behind here.
Yeah. Oh, that's okay with me.
Well, it is, but not for the people that are waiting for the next meeting to start. Brianna, can you tell what's going on with Theo, that he's having trouble?
Through your worship, it says he's connecting to audio. Unfortunately, that's on his end, so there's nothing I can do to help.
Okay. fine.
Want me to
Okay,
call
well,
him? I'll call him.
Lindsay, you're representing Theo, are you?
Yes.
Okay, so I think just for the precious time that we're trying to get through here is I'm going to go ahead and let Michael speak to this application first, and then
Okay.
then we'll see what needs to come in after that. Michael, please go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. This application before the committee is seeking to amend a few items within the town zoning bylaw, seeking to vary several requirements of the respective arterial commercial zone. Item number 1 was to increase the maximum amount of lot coverage associated with outside display and sale of goods. The current maximum is 10% lot coverage, and the request is for 60%. The second request was to allow open storage on the property. Currently, the arterial commercial zone does not allow any open storage as of right. The request is to allow that. And the third item was for the request to develop the site on private services, meaning not connected to municipal water and sanitary services. The arterial commercial zone requires this of properties that are zoned C2. And upon review, staff would like to bring to the committee's attention that the provincial policy statement, which council and committee decisions should be are to be consistent with as administered under the Planning Act, it requires that properties that are located within settlement areas are to be developed on municipal sanitary and water services, unless it were for a situation that can be determined as an infill or minor rounding out of existing development. The county official plan and the town's official plan implement similar language, and the zoning bylaw therefore implements those requirements as well. So upon staff's review, the application, since it's not consistent with provincial policy directive about being connected to municipal services within an urban area, staff are recommending denial of the application to that effect. However, staff would like to reiterate that the committee's decision is certainly it's the committee's decision ultimately as the approval authority. Staff would just like to point out that these are the policy directives that are in place, and staff are making recommendations based on those policies that are in effect. So we do have Mr. Tao here who also assisted with the review from IBI, assisting the town with the review. If there's any specific questions to that effect, Mr. Tao can answer those. But at this time, I believe what we can do is potentially turn it over to Mr. Mills, Mr. Nibourg, to make some representations to the committee as well.
Okay, thank you, Michael, and Mr. Mills and Mr. Nibourg. I would ask that you speak through the chair, and I would ask council that when they have questions, that it comes back through me so that we can not control the conversation, but make sure that we get everybody's attention as to who's speaking and not all at the same time. I just want to check. Tio, can you hear us?
Yes, thanks.
Okay, fine.
Yeah,
And we can hear you as well. Okay, Lindsay, I'm going to let you go ahead if that's what you wish to do, please.
Okay, well, through the chair, thank you very much. As you know, this is a minor variance application to vary 3 provisions of the zoning bylaw. The zoning is arterial commercial. The prospective buyer of this property is proposing to establish a pool sales and hot tub sales operation, commercial use. It'll entail some display of the pools of his product. Also, he wants to have an office building and a storage building for some of the paraphernalia and equipment associated with it. This is a vacant lot. It's 5 hectares in size. It's quite a beautiful lot. It has a lagoon on it. It's a former quarry site that was used for construction of the 401 back in the day. But so we do have this concern with the provincial policy statement asking that it be connected to municipal services. The services, I believe, are up at Van Leuven Road. It would be quite cost prohibitive to extend the services down to this property. And I really understand the concern of planners that are saying this. I know we don't want to offend the PPS and the 2 official plans. But I think the way we have to look at this application is that we're already past that. We're dealing with a situation where he already has the zoning for the use. The use conforms with the zone. We're only requesting changing some of the provisions, not the actual use. So he has the use established, and he also has a development agreement from 1994, the former town of Richmond Township, where he was given permission to develop on private services. Now, as I understand this has not been rescinded, it's still in effect, and I believe this should be honored. So when you look at it that way, he has the use and he has permission to develop on private services. Now, no one is arguing that this property should connect to municipal services. I think what we can do is, and Mr. Nibourg, I know, intends to do that sometime in the future when those services are there to hook up. But in the meantime, if he, it seems logical and in the interest of fairness to honor this agreement that he had, to let him develop at this time on the private services, and we can enter into a development agreement. He needs to have a site plan agreement anyway. This is a commercial development, will always require a site plan agreement. And we can detail the agreement to require the hookup at any time. And I understand that he's even willing to contribute some costs towards that future extension of the services. So I think this is how we have to look at this. We're past the provincial policy statement. We're past the OPs. We're at a stage where we're at the zoning level. And I think when we look at the zone, we look at this previous development agreement, I think we can go ahead and allow this this development to occur, and hopefully with these minor variances approved as well.
Thank you. Councillor Pennell, and then I'll go to Deputy Mayor Kaiser.
Thank you, through your worship. I have a question for Lindsay. Lindsay, when you started to speak, you said the buyer. So what's going on with this property? So we have the landowner, Mr. Nibourg, and then we have a person that wants to come in and display pools and spas and such. Is this land going to be transferred?
I don't know those details. That's I think you'd have to ask Theo Nibourg that.
Okay. I'll ask Theo in a second, Mr. Nibourg in a second. While I have you, with the 1994 agreement, do we have that somewhere where we can take a read of that? And is there a statute of limitations on that for a date that it needs to be implemented by?
Well, through the chair, this agreement was attached to my report. It's the last attachment on my report. And no, it says that it is inured to, it says the agreement shall be binding upon the parties, their successors or assigns. So yeah, it's intended to continue. Yes.
All right. Do you mind, Madam Chair? Madam
No,
Mayor?
and so you were going to direct your question to Mr. Nibourg as to the sale. Is that what you were wanting to do, Councillor Pennell?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, go ahead, please.
Mr. Nibourg, there was a use of a word of the buyer during Lindsay's statement. Is the intention to have these changes done to the bylaws and then transfer the property?
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Kaiser.
Thank you, Your Worship. So looking at this property, first of all, I'd say I have no problem with the first two sections. As Mr. Nopes pointed out, they're within the policy statement and they make sense. It's only to the last one, which has to do with the hooking to private or municipal services. Given that this property is approximately or slightly more than half a kilometer from Van Leuven Road, that's a considerable distance to bring services. So in my mind, even if Mr. Nibourg or whomever was willing to do it, there's time. And even if the town was in a position to do it, there'd be a time consideration in that. And if we were talking about a property right in downtown, there would be a very different discussion. But given that this property is on a fringe, it's in an area of the municipality which we would like to see more development, quite frankly. There's a lot of opportunity between Community Road, Van Leuven Road, Kimmetts Road. I think there's an opportunity here, and I think precedent has been set in other properties where we can be a little bit more flexible and a little bit more open-minded to permit and if Mr. Nibourg is willing to put in a temporary private service, with the idea being that as soon as municipal services reach a proximity to that property or within a reasonable proximity, that if we have an agreement in place that is ironclad to our staff satisfaction, that we should maybe consider going ahead with it. I'd like, I think if you build one, another one will come, and another one. There's an opportunity here for a new area of development within the municipality. And I can be very supportive of an agreement. So I guess what I'm suggesting is that maybe we permit it in principle on the understanding that an agreement be struck with the town satisfaction, that the private services would be temporary in nature, with the idea being some sort of window of time in the future, because I think anyone can see that along that length of Kimmetts Side Road, there is potential for future development. And this one property, which happens to be at the southern end of it, shouldn't bear the entire burden of getting services to it just to satisfy the provincial statement today, but with the idea that it needs to come in the future. I'm going to leave it at that and see what that attracts from the rest of council.
Okay, I've got Councillor McCormack, and then I'll go to you, Councillor Richardson.
Thank you, Your Worship. My question's directed to Chief Koenig. If he could comment, please, on emergency services take on this application, if there's any concerns from their perspective.
Chief Koenig? Almost, there he is. I was going to say, it almost sounds like he's trying to unmute himself. There he is.
Sorry, Mayor, I had a little bit of a problem here. It froze up, so I hardly heard you.
Okay. So do you want Councillor McCormack to repeat his question?
Please, Your Worship. Like I said, it froze up on me and I couldn't hear the question.
Okay, thank you. Councillor
Great.
McCormack, please repeat. Yeah.
Through Your Worship, Chief, I was just wondering if emergency services have any concerns with this application, being that it's an unserviced lot. I just wanted your take on it. If you have any comments.
At this time, emergency services doesn't have any concerns for that area. We're already running tanker support into that area right now to deal with water supply up in that area. So this would be just continuance of the same services that we're providing there now. So I have no concern.
Thank you.
Who was next that wanted to question? Councillor Richardson, and then I'll go to Councillor Johnson.
Thank you, Worship. I'm not sure who I'm going to direct the question to, but it's with respect to the paragraph in the report with respect to the sewage system, and it would appear as though there's some type of a hurdle with respect to what type of sewage system would go in there and what's even able to do that. Anybody that can comment on to whether or not what kind of system could be used in that particular area, if any at all, and it would appear as though that the report suggests further investigation would be required to confirm any kind of viability for the site. So I'm not sure who I'm going to direct it to, but whoever can answer that would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Your Worship, I can address that.
Okay, thank you. And I see that Lindsay did have his hand up too, so I will let him speak to it after you're done, Michael. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. The town sewage system coordinator attended the site and performed a site review prior to the recent snowfall. So he was able to see the underlying soil conditions on the lot and its viability to support a sewage system. Much of the lot is open flat rock, which you would not be able to put a sewage system on. The western part of the property appears to contain a considerable amount of fill, which also would not be suitable for the placement of a sewage system. However, there may be a location on the property to accommodate traditional sewage system to support a commercial building of the size that was proposed. But further investigation at the time of applying to install such sewage system, there would be additional and more in-depth review that would be required at that stage. It seems possible, but there are some doubts at this time. We would like to see some additional test holes dug and confirmation of ultimately the location of the building if this development is allowed to develop on private services from a building code standpoint and building permit issuance standpoint for a sewage system. We would need to be very cautious of where that building can be located and the proximity of any sewage system to support that building itself.
Thank you. Lindsay, I'll let you make a comment on that if you'd like to.
Yes, thank you. And I agree with Mr. Nobes. Pretty much what I was going to say. The only thing is, in my experience, I've been a planner for over 30 years, but in my experience, it's very seldom where a system cannot be accommodated on a site because they can always bring the fill in. It could be a raised system, especially a design system. So like I say, the material can always be brought in to accommodate the system, in my experience. So.
Okay, Councillor Pennell.
Thank you, through your worship.
Sorry, did I skip over you, Councillor Richardson?
No, I was just going to thank both the gentlemen for the information. That's all.
Okay, sorry, Councillor Pennell, go ahead.
No worries. Just a comment through you to begin with, your worship, is that in the spring we can see that when we're driving on the 401 that there is a waterfall effect that comes out of that rock cut where that quarry is. So that's something to keep in the mind, as well as the water is flowing towards the 401 coming out there. What would be the an issue of having holding tanks in here for such a thing until the hookup could happen? I guess maybe to you, Mr. Nobes.
Your worship, I can address that too. The sewage system coordinator's comments do touch on that. Given the location of the property itself and the parameters associated with the potential development, this property unfortunately would not qualify for the use of solely a holding tank under the building code. So it would need to be a conventional system on this property.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Johnson, I did skip over you and I'm sorry.
No worry, Mayor. Thank you very much. I wanted to say, first of all, I'm in agreement with the comments that the Deputy Mayor made with regards to encouraging this development to move forward. I do have a couple of questions for Mr. Nibourg, in that they are currently proposing that the property is going to be used for hot tub and pool sales. And he may not be able to answer this as he's looking to sell the property, not run the business himself. Is there any chance that they would also look at an installation of these units, and that would facilitate the requirement of having to store heavy equipment on the property?
Okay, that's, I guess we'll direct that right to Theo. Can you answer Councillor Johnson's question regarding to the heavy equipment?
Your worship, if I can answer that, I don't think so there's any heavy equipment except for loading and unloading of the pools. And that probably would be more in crane, no other heavy equipment.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Johnson, does that answer your question? That's question number one. Okay, and another one?
It does answer the question. And I think I just wanted to reiterate that our planning department still would have a site plan approval process, that if the use of the property changed, they would ensure that screening is available to maintain the property in a fashion that is acceptable to any neighbors.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. I'll go to you, Councillor Pennell, and then I'll see if we can't get to a recommendation on this. But go ahead, please.
Thank you, worship, through you to Michael Nobes. In the report, I was reading that the road would have to be upgraded for this, and I'm just wondering, if we have a cost associated with that yet. Because I'm just being frank here. I got a little bit of a hard time for us to, and the taxpayers to put out, to upgrade a road and surface treat it, that road for that one business. Whereas right around the corner on Van Leuven Road, we have issues there. So that would be a really hard sale for myself to have that cost associated back to the taxpayers.
Your worship, yes, I can address
Michael.
that. The director of capital works reviewed the proposal and has identified that the road has been left in a gravel condition. The road base is in very good condition, but the top has not been surface treated. It's just been left in a gravel condition, as there is really no demand on that road. There's no development. There's no heavy use thereof. So the comment with regards to upgrading the road, there would be a cost associated with that in so far as approximately $100,000, inclusive of material and installation costs. So what the director of capital works recommended was, if it's palatable to council and to the applicant, potentially sharing that cost 50-50 if the committee were to allow the development to proceed on private services and approve the minor variance. So something to bear in mind moving forward. If this is approved, we would be going through to the site plan stage afterwards, and these sort of details would be worked out at that stage. But I just wanted to make the committee aware of that requirement at this time.
Okay, thank you.
Anything further from council? Any more questions or comments? Councillor Pennell.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. On the western side of that road, I guess it would be, who owns that land? Is that the corporation that owns that? Or like the corporation with Greater Napanee?
Through your worship, to my understanding, the municipality does own the land on the west side of Kimmetts side road here in this area.
Thank you. And is it developable?
Again, through your worship, it is developable. There are some environmental features that would need to be accommodated on that property, but there is the zoning in effect. It would allow for development. Again, site plan approval would be required prior to issuance of any building permits for any development on that property. And again, the servicing discussion would be surfacing for those lands as well.
Thank you.
Any further comments or questions coming from council? I think we've had some very good suggestions and comments on this. I'm going to make a suggestion because I think there are some things that council does have some concerns about, unless council's wishes are to make a recommendation as to whether to approve or not approve. But if council wanted to, and I'm going to put this question to you, Michael, and I'm not sure how time sensitive it is, if there are concerns that council would like more information on, that it could come back to, could it come back to our first meeting in February? Is there a committee of adjustments in February? And I'm just putting that out there because I do hear some concerns. I hear cost of road, I hear temporary as opposed to permanent services. And I think it's important that we have everything to look at to do it. So Michael, go ahead. I've asked too many questions, I know.
Through your worship, I think we might be able to get a report back for the first meeting in February for the committee's consideration. We will have a regular meeting scheduled, but this is the public meeting associated with the application. So we can bring it back. We don't need to re-notify. We've already done that for this meeting itself. So we can bring it back if need excuse me, if need be.
Okay, council's wishes here. I'm just putting that out there. Yes, our time is a little sensitive now because we're getting into 9:39. We have two others. Councillor McCormack.
Thank you, Worship. I would support what you're suggesting. There are some comments made by the deputy mayor, and I appreciate development and looking for promoting additional businesses and whatnot. But I'm not comfortable at this point supporting going ahead with this. I would go with. I'm leaning towards staff recommendation, but not to dissuade anybody. I think it would be good for Mr. Knowles to be able to come back to council at the next meeting with some more information.
So you're making that motion, Councillor McCormack. Deputy Mayor, did I see that you were seconding it? And so we need to specify the information that we would like to see staff come back with. So Councillor McCormack and Deputy Mayor Kaiser, I need you to add to that as to what your requirements would be for the next meeting.
Well, Your Worship,
I would, sorry,
yeah.
Go ahead, John.
No, sorry, Max. My main concern is the development of the services and how we would get to that septic system, more information about that. I appreciate the planner's comments that in his experience, bringing in fill and whatnot, they can customize septic system, but I'd like to see more information about that, those two items anyways. Thank you.
And I would respectfully add the referring Councillor Purnell's comments about roads, just a clear understanding, maybe just a little bit more robust information on the road implications too.
The road cost and implications, okay?
Yeah.
Councillor Richardson, were you leaning forward to speak? No, okay.
Oh, thank you, Your Worship.
Okay, so you do have a recommendation before you. I would rather see that we gave this a fulsome look instead of going one way or the other and then wishing that we had asked the questions. So I am going, Madam Clerk, do you have the information for the resolution?
Yes, Your Worship. I have that the committee received for information the technical report regarding minor variance application PLVAR 2021-043, and further that the committee requests a report be brought to the next meeting with more information about the options to develop service and the road implications of the application. Is there anything else that should be in there?
I think there was one more, yeah.
I think Councillor McCormack also mentioned the potential viability of whether private services were even had the potential to be accommodated on the site.
Yes, options. Okay, I will amend that motion accordingly.
Okay, so with that being said, thank you everyone for input. Theo, Lindsay, Mark, Michael, I think it's the best way to make sure that we have all the information going forward, so we give this fair treatment. And with that, I will call the question. All in favor of the motion? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you very much, Council. Thank you very much, Lindsay, Theo, and Mark.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome. So I will go on now to minor variance application PLVAR 2021-083 Napanee Retail Center Corp 450 Center Street North. Michael, do you wish to speak to this?
Thank you, Your Worship. I don't have anything else to add beyond the contents of the report. Staff have been reviewing this application for quite some time. We're nearing completion of our review. There were some traffic related concerns similar to the Canadian Tire site, where this area as a whole is quite busy, and the county is well aware of that. They're certainly considering additional signalization on Center Street. They don't know when that would occur specifically, but the traffic related aspects of this proposal have been reviewed, and we're still working out a couple of the details, but this application specifically is looking for relief around the two interior side lot line setbacks. We're not necessarily seeking site plan approval outright at this time, but it would be one of the necessary steps in order to get to that point. So I can address any questions of the committee.
Thank you. Any questions, Councillor Purnell?
Thank you, Your Worship, through you, Michael. obviously, I mean, there's businesses on either side. It's kind of this fits there. It's not really going to be bothering them any by the small amounts that I could see. My question was just like Canadian Tire did in this whole process, have they surrendered the land that they want for Center Street as well, as much like what we've done for Canadian Tire?
Through your worship, are you referring to the road widening that would be dedicated? Yes, that will be one of the conditions of site plan approval, and the county has requested that. So a road widening would be required from the county's perspective here as well, similar to how Canadian Tire was treated.
Sure. Okay. Well, if anyone else has any questions, I'll make staff recommendation.
Okay, so we have a motion from Councillor Pennell. Do I have a seconder for that? And then I'll look for more conversation. Councillor Johnson, any further comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion? Motion is carried. Thank you. Last item on the agenda, 6.3 minor variance application, PLVAR 2021-093. M&A Madden 192 Bridge Street West, legal description, part lot 41, plan 30, Napanee. Michael, with this one, please.
Thank you, Worship. This application is seeking to permit the additional lot coverage for an accessory building. The way in which the zoning bylaw is written now, accessory buildings can only cover 10% of the lot area, which is fairly consistent with area municipalities. This lot is, it's not small, but it's an older sized lot. It's somewhat constrained, and the request of the applicant is to tear down an existing garage that actually currently encroaches into the municipal right-of-way, and the intention would be to put it back in a similar location, albeit completely outside of the right-of-way. But they're looking for approval to construct a slightly larger garage than the one that's currently in place, and that would necessitate the need for this minor variance. So staff have reviewed, no concerns from a staffing perspective.
Thanks, Michael. Questions to Michael on this minor variance? Seeing none, you do have a staff recommendation. Moved by Councillor Richardson, seconded by Deputy Mayor Kaiser. If there are no further comments, all in favor of the motion? Motion is carried. Thank you. And I'll look for a motion of adjournment. And then the only other question is, did I call a vote on? You're going for a motion of adjournment. Sorry. Moved by Councillor Pennell, seconded by Deputy Mayor Kaiser. All in favor of that motion? Motion is carried. And Brianna, can you just confirm for all of council and staff, where are we heading to from here as far as the link? Are we staying within this one?
Through your worship, no, there's a new link in your email that we're going to be using.
Perfect. The one that we had that you'd sent us before, right?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you very much. See you shortly in the next meeting.